Welcome to the Stire Sound podcast with your hosts, Trey Stire and Jack Noel.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first official full-length episode of the Stire Sound. My name is Trey Stire. Thank you all so much for listening and tuning in. I appreciate the feedback and the support from the introduction episode, and we are going to hop into things right away. Southwick coming up this weekend. We had a first off weekend of the Pro Motocross Championship, and now we have another 4-race stretch. Some of the most iconic tracks on the circuit coming right up. We got Southwick, then the 4th of July craziness that is Redbud, then we have Millville and Washougal. Joining me today as my co-host for this episode, a man who has been in the pits for a lot of the season. He has a role with the Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team. He was checking things out today at the practice track. It is Monday evening when we're recording this. He was at the sandbox today, watching the likes of Tom Vial and Cullen Park spin some laps in the sand. Vial getting ready for Southwick, a man who's won at Southwick before. Joining me today, Jack Noel. What's up, man? Thanks for being a part of this, and welcome to the Stire Sound.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the podcast you got coming out, and I'm glad I can be a part of it. Yeah, I'm excited for next weekend in Southwick. I think the sand, like being in Florida down here, like a lot of the guys, they train sand a lot, so I get to see them ride, and I think they're all pretty good in it. So it'll be the team's second national. I'm excited for that, and yeah, High Point was good to us somewhat, and I'm excited. Thank you.
We have a cool 94 degrees up here in West Virginia today. I'm sure it's got to be the same way or possibly even worse in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing down here is the humidity. It's not like temperature-wise. It's only like, it was like 80, I think it's 88 right now, and it's 5:30.
Gotcha.
So like right in the middle of the day, it's probably like a 94 degree somewhat.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is the humidity. It's like wearing a jacket in, 85 degree weather. It's pretty hectic, and that makes you sweat a lot and definitely takes a toll. But other than that, the weather's been somewhat decent, but today was definitely a hot one out of the track.
It's both here today. I just checked my weather app. It says 92 in downtown Lumberport. Feels like 97. So we got a little bit more heat. But talking about High Point, the Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team, you guys competed in the 250 East Supercross schedule last year. You competed in the 250 East schedule again this year with KTM support. WMR Race Shop is helping you guys out a lot. Some really good moments for the team. Gage Linville, of course, the podium in the mud at Foxborough was a huge moment for the organization. And Crockett Myers was out there the first few nationals, but more on his own. High Point was finally the first time you really got to set up your team effort, set up the hauler, have the guys pitting out. Gage Linville returned from his injuries from Philadelphia. And Jace Kessler was in action for the first time this year. He had a shoulder injury going into Supercross, and then he was getting primed and ready to go for outdoors, and then suffered a wrist injury. But he was finally back on the line at High Point. Talk a little bit about your weekend at High Point, getting the boys ready for action and being able to compete once again, and also the struggles for them because, man, they were out there in the B group. And when I was watching the A group, there was legitimately 40 guys that I feel like could score points out there, and also being like, hey, man, it's an uphill battle with all the guys who are talented and able to potentially score points.
Yeah, I mean, the 250 class this year is definitely no joke. A lot of guys, like, you go from 1 to 25 and you're naming probably, 20 guys on, like, factory bikes almost, and then you have, like, the Bar X's and the Clubs and the Phoenixes and the PRMXs and stuff like that, like in the AEOs, like just the good built-up satellite teams that are competing in the outdoor series. It's tough, and everybody's kind of healthy. Like there's only a couple guys that are out, so it makes it tough. And like outdoors, is sometimes it can be weak, and sometimes it can be strong, like it is now. And for us, like our goal with being at these races, it's like we want to go out there and try to score points, but like at the same time, we have to be a little bit realistic with our expectations and say, Jace is in 25th and he's battling with Mikel Harrop and Jordan Smith. It's like he's in 25th. Like, holy crap, man, that's tough. So it makes it definitely, scoring a point this year is going to be tough. Definitely tougher than years past, but hopefully we can score some points and get one of our guys into that top 30 to qualify for the SMX. And that's kind of the goal with it. And we're just tackling each round one at a time and just wanting to be at these races to kind of keep our relevance and, figure it out. And that way, in the future, when we do decide to tackle maybe the whole series or we keep growing, that we know what to expect, so that's kind of what this year's all about. And our expectations were just kind of be in the motos the first round. And then, as the guys build, they get better. But it was tough. I mean, Gage got put in A group and B group had a pretty sick track. Like there's a lot of guys that haven't qualified for motos yet this year that were able to get out of B group and definitely made it tough. So like Gage, I think was 29th overall. No, something like that, like in A group, but that wasn't even close to top 36 to go right into the motos. So he had to go to the LCQ, and obviously it didn't work out very well for him. He had a tip over on the first lap and was fighting from behind the whole time. He got up to 9th, which is good. Like he was the fastest guy on the track. It's just 4 laps, 35 guys to pass. It's pretty tough. So outdoors this year, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be tough to just be inside the top 20 and to score points. And if we can do that, we'll be stoked.
Dude, the consolation race at High Point, and I know not a lot of people got to see it, but the 250 consolation race was absolutely nuts. You had a huge pile up first or second corner. There's got legit guys, I think Mark Finnis, Brock Bennett, some of those guys, Kyle Wise maybe as well. Several guys getting taken out, bikes piled together, handlebars stuck, and those guys were out of it. And then you have the infamous High Point wall crash that was making the rounds on social media last week when Chase Yinser just completely T-bones Jack Chambers. Chambers goes into the wall, recovers, misses the transfers by a point, and then Chase's bike got stuck in the UFO banners. I mean, it was a crazy, wild race. And like you said, the battle to get into the motos. Jace got in there and was running solid first moto, making some passes second moto, and it feels like the poor guy can't catch a break. He goes down on one of the downhills. You could barely see it on the TV broadcast. I didn't catch it personally watching, but he goes down. The team announced today that he broke his collarbone and is getting surgery, but he's going to try to line up this weekend at Southwick 5 days after surgery and give it a go, man. This guy, it seems like he's snake bit, but he's toughing it out, and he's a warrior, and I'm sure that he's going to be ready to go this weekend because he just finally got back to the races and another crash.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like one of those things, like even before Supercross, like it was a big bummer for him because he felt like he finally had something behind him and to kind of like put himself on like a pedestal in a sense, to kind of push himself forward and to be better. And then obviously getting hurt and missing all the Supercross. And then he was supposed to race the first 3 outdoors with Crockett, and him and Crockett kind of go out there and do it on their own, and had another injury that set him back. And then with this past weekend in High Point, he, can't catch a break, breaking the collarbone. It's like, man, like, a 28th in the first moto back, like it's pretty darn good. Like I was stoked on that. A top 30 was, kind of like his goal when he found out he made the motos, and he was able to do that, and he was able to hang in that kind of that top 25-ish pace for a little over half the moto, which was good to see. And then obviously second moto, just trying to make some moves and kind of oversent the inside down the hill and kind of cross-throated and went down pretty hard, and definitely sucks. I'm glad it's only like a collarbone and not something more heavy or anything like that, but it definitely doesn't seem like he can catch a break right now. And like, I know he wants to race Southwick. I know he, wants to see it. I definitely will be a game time decision for him, I think, whether or not he does end up racing or not, but at the end of the day, it's like, for him, I think he just wants to get behind the gate and race as much as he can. And if he's able to race Southwick, I'm sure he will.
Redbud coming up too, and I know that's his home race, and he's performed well there in the past. Last weekend, of course, was the first official but unofficial episode of the Stire Sound, my introduction, a little bit of my backstory. You are probably going to become a regular on this podcast as well. So for the people who don't know you, introduce yourself a little bit. As I mentioned, you're a part of the Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team. Talk about how you got involved with them. And I know you're also friends with some of the riders in the paddock, Chase Sexton being one of them. Talk a little bit about your journey into professional motocross and what got you started with the DBD boys and how you became an asset to their program.
Yeah, so I mean, as a kid, I grew up in Illinois. Me and Chase, like Chase is a little older than I am. I'm only 21, and he's about 25. But we grew up in kind of like a similar area. We would race at the same like local tracks, and my dad is a mechanic. Worked at some shops over there, and Chase's dad would be in and out of there, and Chase's bikes, he'd be working on his bikes, stuff like that, and we'd go race at the same local tracks like Sunset Ridge and Mega Cross and stuff like that. But I was, fairly young still. And then, my dad got a job at MMI, Motorcycle Mechanics Institute, as an instructor. So it moved our family down to Orlando area, and we settled into Claremont. And that was kind of before the big boom down here. Really, it was kind of like, I think RV was down here, and then like Dunge came, and then Kenny C came, and then Sandbox kind of became like a thing, and it was a whole ordeal. Like it just kept growing with the sport. And then when Chase moved down here in 2016, I was only like 14 years old, I think, at the time. And our families reconnected. We hung out, watched some races together, and then I got to watch him go pro and watch a couple of his races when he was pretty young. He was 16 or 17. And then I just kind of, lived the normal life. Like I quit racing when I was 9 years old, but my dad stuck around, working at MMI and stuff like that. So I've always followed the sport, and I knew Chase, and I was like, oh, it's cool watching him grow through it and stuff like that. And then as I got older, we'd start hanging out more and more. And I met some people through him. Like I met Cullen Park, and I met a couple other guys, like Tom Vial, a bunch of people. It's so many that I don't even know who to name, But then there was a kid I met through Chase. His name is Blaze Cromaldi, local guy out of New York. He was kind of coming on the scene young, didn't have a great amateur career, but was racing the nationals and trying to get into Supercross. He was training out at Sandbox, and me and him started talking, hanging out. He had a sponsor, the Dirt Bike Depot, and one day Max came out to this track and was doing like some team stuff. He had a couple riders down here, like Logan Carnow and Chad Saltz and Jack Chambers. He was doing some promotional shoots like that for his company. And I talked to him, and he's like, oh yeah, like this is winter time of 2022. And he's like talking to me. He's like, oh yeah, like, I've been wanting to do a team and see how it goes, and, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, yeah, man, well, like, just let me know if, you're interested and you need any help. Like, just give me a shout. Like I want to go to the races. I was fresh out of high school, like 18, 19 years old. And I was just trying to, get my foot in the door any way I could. And sure enough, he's like, all right, man, well, I didn't go to the first round with the team, which was in Houston, but I did. The next round was in Tampa, which is right down the road. So he said, hey, let's just try Tampa, see how it goes. And then if it goes well, we'll, bring you on and we'll let you come, do the series. And so that's what happened. I had a good round. We had a good round in Tampa with the team. It was kind of a interesting effort our first year. Like it was just kind of like getting to the races. Like there wasn't much for us to do. Like we did things for the riders, obviously, provided some things, but it's nowhere near the level or scale we're at now.
Kind of like a transport program at first, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Like we would charge the guys, or if they wanted to ride, like have us take their bikes to the race, they would pay, and we'd provide some things like that, like some goggles or some like little crap, just help kind of maintain their stuff on a race day and give them a place to pit, whatever. And then 2023, that was 2023, 2024, kind of revamped the program a little bit. Said, look, we're not going to make guys pay anything. We want guys to kind of be, you have them utilize our resources of us going to the race, so we're able to take all their bikes for free, give them a place to set up, make sure they have gear, helmet, goggles, boots, all that kind of stuff, like graphics, handlebars, miscellaneous parts to kind of help them get on their bikes and help them not have to stress so much about the little stuff and be able to go race the dirt bike on a race day and really feel like that's all they have to do. They don't have to worry about cleaning their helmet off or prepping their goggles or the little stuff that you would have to do if you were a privateer on your own already. But now we're trying to take some of that weight off your shoulders on a race day. So that was like our 2024 effort, which was good. We had guys in main events, pretty much every weekend, and we were able to get all four of our guys in the main event. And that was a pretty cool feat. Like that was a cool experience back in Birmingham of 2024. And then, this past year we were like, we're trying to just up our program every year. And we got on board with WMR and KTM, and it's been good so far, and I'm excited for the future. I mean, just now that we're doing outdoors, it's something that if you had told us 2 years ago we were doing outdoors and Supercross and we had bike support and we had a big, rig, I'd have told you, probably not, but we'll see. And, the scale is just going up and up and up. Like if we can keep growing at the rate we're growing, we'll be up there in no time.
It's been a cool story to follow because myself, starting my riding career was pretty much right at the time Max was getting his team going, and I remember reaching out to him during the 2023 offseason for when you guys had signed guys like Gage Linville, Bryce Shelley, Marcus Phelps, Logan Leitzel to race last year, and asking him what the program was like, and he was very insightful, gave me a lot of details about the operation. And obviously Birmingham, I talked to him again last year when you guys put all four of your guys in the main event, and just watching the team grow and blossom this year. Of course, you guys had the podium with Gage and Foxborough, turned into a pretty reliable main event organization. You, like you said, guys pretty much every week. Gage last year, really his breakout season, he was making main events pretty much every weekend. And even I remember last year's showdown in Nashville, he was running, I think, the last transfer spot, and Deegan was behind him, and he was giving him fits and doing everything possible to keep him behind him. Then this year, you guys added like Crockett Myers, who made a couple starts for you guys in the main events. Jace Kessler, of course, he's been dealing with the injuries, but now finally getting back on the mend. It's definitely been a team that has been growing and progressing forward in the last couple years, and it's been an honor for me to cover and watch the team grow from getting one guy in the main event and being stoked about it to all four, and then the podium in the mud, which was absolutely euphoric for you guys. And I know, talking to Max and talking to Gage, how much work they've put in from their perspective ends, it had to be the absolute dream for you as well.
Yeah, no, it was an unreal night because like Foxborough in itself, like last year was a really good night for us too, or a good race for us as well. We had an LCQ win and two other guys in the main event. Unfortunately, Marcus in 2024 didn't make it, but and then this past year in Foxborough, Crockett won the LCQ, which that was a sick moment for him to be in the race again and to win a race at any level and when you're a pro is huge. And then obviously Gage going from last to third, like that was pretty crazy. And like there was talks before the race, like, if it's not going well, like I might just pull off, or I might not. I'll try to save the bike, because these guys are on the same bike all year. There's not fresh motors in the truck to swap out after a race like that. Like the factory teams have the ability to. So definitely like preservation of your bikes and stuff like that was, in the back of your head. And in a race like that, I kind of always said like we were very optimistic about how we approached the day. I was like, look, man, all day we were just in good spirits and high. That we had a bunch of Patriot players come by and hang out with the team for a little bit. And I was just like, man, look, anything can happen today. Like, no matter who you are, what position you're in, like anything can happen. Like, if you keep that bike on two wheels, you might damn near win the race. And we damn near almost did. We got a third, which is pretty sick. And that was a pretty surreal moment. Like you only think about things like this, like, oh, what would it feel like if we got a podium? Like, I know what it feels like now. It's pretty damn good, I'll tell you what.
It was a very cool moment. You guys, Cullen Park as well, you mentioned getting to know him. He was another guy that's been working for years and getting to that step. For you guys,
Yeah.
like you said as well, motocross this year for the first time. It's a big step. Going to High Point your first round as a team. Now the rest of the summer, are you guys going to all the races or more of just the East Coast races like normal? Because I feel like Washougal would be a really far trek for a Florida-based team like you guys.
Yeah, no, we're not doing Washougal, but everything else, but Washougal from here on out will be at. So we'll be at, Redbud or Southwick, Redbud, Millville, Budds Creek, Ironman, and Unadilla.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you go to the races, swing by the Dirt Bike Depot truck. Very friendly people. I've talked and interviewed with the riders before. A bunch of very down-to-earth and very chatty guys, especially Crockett Myers. That dude loves to talk. That dude loves to chat. I'm sure if you want to go to the race and talk to some of the racers, those guys will definitely get you dialed in. We're going to transition now into the news part of our podcast. The news tonight is brought to you by Your Name Here. We're brand new. We don't have any sponsors yet, but if you know somebody who would like to spread the word about their product and also spread the word about this new podcast, let us know. Get in touch with us. I know the Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team has a lot of great sponsors. We could showcase some of them if they were interested. We'll see, but hey, we're open to anything. We don't have a bunch of ads or sponsors yet. We're new, trying to get off the ground. But if anyone's interested, please contact us at the Stire Sound official on Instagram, or get a hold of me personally. whatever works. But the biggest news going into this weekend, unfortunately, Chance Hymas torn ACL when he crossed the finish line at High Point. I saw it a little bit. You could see it on the broadcast for sure. Him kind of looking down, grabbing at his knee, torn ACL, and man, he's been the only guy really so far, actually the only guy to beat Hayden Deegan in a moto, and unfortunately gone for the season due to his knee injury. It's a bummer to see, especially now. It's like, who is going to be able to step up to the plate and try to challenge Hayden Deegan? And we're sending our best wishes to Chance as he recovers.
Yeah, I mean, Hymas was. I watched him kind of a little bit preseason because Cullen was out there training at the dog pound, and he was riding outdoors a couple days. Hymas was, in between Supercross and before Salt Lake, and man, I was out there like, man, he is going fast, dude. Like I immediately thought when I saw him, like, he has the ability to potentially contend for this title. I mean, I knew Deegan was going to be a tough ass to beat, but he looked like he had the speed. And when it moved out, east, I was thinking, okay, hopefully he can find a little bit more of a flow, get back into the things and kind of contend with Deegan. But with him being out, it definitely opens the door for somebody else. But like a guy like Shimoda, a guy like Levi, and like especially this weekend, like Tom, being a sand track, and Tom's obviously won overall there before, definitely wouldn't surprise me if Tom Vial is definitely in the mix this weekend. And I know Deegan isn't the biggest sand rider, but really, does the guy have a weakness right now? Because he's unreal on a dirt bike, and it's tough for anybody to step up to challenge him for anything really. And it's definitely unfortunate that Hymas is unable to continue the season, but it'll be interesting to see if anybody can step up. I think it could be a number of guys. It could be a different guy each weekend, to be honest with you. If a guy's on their game, like a Vial or a Kitchen or a Shimoda, or even like one of his Star Racing teammates, it could be one of those guys. And I know Jalik Swoll's been going fast, and I think Jalik will be better and better each weekend. I think he could have a chance to contend. I mean, he's won races before, so I'm interested to see who steps up to be, contend with Deegan. I know that everybody's chasing him, and everybody wants a piece and wants to take him down. So I'm interested to see. I mean, who do you think? Who do you think's got a chance?
It's hard to tell going into Southwick. I agree with your Tom Vial point. A guy who's won at Southwick before, has experience, albeit different and deeper sand in the MXGP series. I feel like he, for sure on paper, be the biggest threat to Deegan this weekend. But at the same time, the way Deegan's been racing all season, he's been pretty much on another level, except for Thunder Valley. And of course, the first moto, he was right behind Chance and then ended up having to nurse his bike home. One guy that you didn't mention that I will shout out as well, if Garrett Marchbanks gets a start, and I know that's a big question because we've talked about it for the last few years. Everyone has, it seems like. If Garrett Marchbanks gets a start, he's going to be up there. And dude, he's tied for third in points right now, and I think he's still kind of under the radar. Marchbanks could potentially be able to challenge those guys up front. I saw news earlier today, another Honda rider, this time Phoenix Racing Honda. Unfortunately, Gavin Towers is also going to be out for the rest of the year with a knee injury, and that sucks. Towers, it was his rookie season. He was starting to really get a base under him, scored his first point outdoors at Thunder Valley. He made all the main events in Supercross. High Point was his home race. I know I talked to him on press day and interviewed him, and he seemed very ecstatic. He was like, man, I'm back on the East Coast, back to more familiar dirt. And it seemed like he was really kind of poised to break out and start really being a consistent top 20 guy all the time. And unfortunately, the news came in today that he's also going to be out for a while.
Yeah, and I think the Phoenix group, I think they're adding somebody. I believe it will be TJ Albright will be filling in for Gavin. And then I want to say, I think Cullen is supposed to be racing Southwick or coming in at some point this outdoor season. You could see him at Southwick. I'm not 100% sure on that. But at some point, Cullen will be making a return to race for the Phoenix guys to help with his SMX qualifying and whatnot. But I believe TJ Albright will be filling in for Gavin Towers, I believe, starting at Southwick. So it'll be interesting to see how he does and if he has anything to do, like if he can make the motos or not. Like, I don't think TJ's raced outdoors in 2 years, so it could be one of those things where they just want to bike on the track. But I mean, I'm interested to see how they'll do. I know it's been tough for the Phoenix guys this year, and hopefully they can show something in outdoors with with TJ, and if Colin comes back, it'll be good for them too.
Jack, casually breaking a little bit of news that I was unaware of. Shout out to TJ Albright. He's competed the last couple years, 250 West Series for Rock River Yamaha. It'll be interesting to see what he does with his opportunity. I'm sure Phoenix's main concern is getting Dylan Ferrandis back to 100% health. I know once he went out at the end of Supercross, they were targeting maybe the last 3 nationals, so potentially Ironman could be Dylan Ferrandis' comeback. More news, the U.S. Series, of course, was off last weekend, but the MXGP, I haven't been able to watch it yet. It was at Matterley Basin in the United Kingdom where Motocross of Nations was last year, but Romain Fevre winning another overall in the MXGP class. And one of the more surprising things in MXGP this year to me has been Simon Langenfelder in the MX2 class. I figured coming into the year, kind of like it is in the U.S., I figured Kai de Wolf, after his championship last year, would just come out swinging, lights out, and be the class of the field, but that really hasn't happened. He did have a pretty big practice crash over one of the triples on Saturday, but Langenfelder 1-1. He's got almost like a 30-point lead now, I believe. So shout out to him. And, of course, there's been some rumors I've heard of a little bit of tension between Langenfelder and Sasha Kunin. So it'll be interesting to see if the teammates can coexist, so to speak. But I don't know how much MXGP you follow, Jack, but Simon Langenfelder has really been crushing it this year, and he could be the next guy to really get the DeCarli KTM legendary organization that guys like Cairoli and Prado have won for to bring them another championship.
Yeah, I think Langenfelder is really good. I think he's kind of underrated. I think he kind of has been kind of under the radar a little bit. I remember the first time I really noticed him was when I think it was Ernay 2024 or 2023 designations, I think, right?
Yeah.
Was that
Yep.
Ernay? Yeah, I think he got like second in a moto or somewhere he got second in a moto, and I was like, holy, it might have even been in this past year at Matterley Basin. I don't, if I recall, but I know he got second in one of the motos on a 250. And I was like, okay, like, who's this German guy? Like, who is this guy? And yeah, I mean, he's been going fast. And I think the biggest thing over there is consistency. I think the class is kind of all wide open in speed. Like, I think anybody can win any weekend between like Adamo, Kunin, Langenfelder, DeWolf. Ferrez has been getting into form a little bit. And like Benestance and some guys like that, like I think anybody can kind of show up one day and do really, really good. It's kind of weird. But Langenfelder's definitely kind of taking the series by the neck and really kind of taking control. But I mean, I'm really good friends with Guillem Ferrez. I got to do a little story on him that got put on Racer X, and I've just been stoked to see him kind of coming into form a little bit. Like he was able to get a moto win, and I believe it was the German GP, if I recall. And that was super stoked. I was stoked for him. I was pumped. I called him the next day. I was like, dude, I'm just so proud of you, dude. Like, finally getting back into it. Like, I knew you had the speed. We knew you were coming back. And then I think he went 5-5, fourth overall this past weekend. But yeah, I definitely thought the same thing too, though, with the whole Kai de Wolf thing, like walking away with it. But if you can't keep the bike on 2 wheels, it's not going to help. So I think de Wolf definitely is the most talented rider on the GP field on the MX2 class. But when it comes to winning a championship, you got to keep it on 2. So, and then the GP class, I mean, it's kind of up in the air, really. Like Feb is kind of in the driver's seat with guys are going out. And then Hurlings obviously is kind of like in and out of form. And then Lucas Kunin, which I believe we'll be seeing this weekend at Southwick along with his brother Sasha. Don't know if you knew that one or not. I guess we'll see like firsthand how, and those guys are both from Belgium. So they're used to that thick Lommel sand. I think they'll excel at Southwick.
That's going to be interesting to see. I don't know 100% sure if they're coming over. Obviously, both Kunin brothers have been rumored to come to America for a long time. But I just looked at the standings. Langenfelder, 49-point lead over the 2023 champion Andrea Adamo right now. And in the 450 class, the MXGP class, Fevre has a 30-point lead over Kunin. Still a long way to go. They still have about half the season or so left. Speaking of MXGP Series and Motocross of Nations, that race is obviously at Ironman Raceway in Indiana at the first weekend of October. And the first team was announced. Team South Africa was revealing their lineup last week sometime. Camden McClellan, obviously the headliner, another man on a Triumph. You talked about Guillem Ferrez. McClellan won a moto earlier this season as well on a Triumph. I don't remember exactly which round it was, but he's been fast all year and performing well. He'll be South Africa's representative in the MX2 class, and on their big bikes, a couple of guys who have had some experience racing here in America. You have Tristan Purdon, who's been racing here a good bit, scored some points at Ironman last year, actually, on the SC Sport Home Husqvarna. And then Cameron Durho, who's recently moved up to the 450 class, who, if you see a 584 on a Red Bull KTM, that is Durho. He races for South Africa's Red Bull KTM team. Those guys running it back, same exact lineup from a year ago. I think they'll be a solid A final team for sure. McClellan could be one of those guys, kind of like Thomas Kjær Olsen was several years back for Denmark, kind of like Geyser is in the MXGP class, where they're probably not going to contend for an overall win or a podium, but they'll be A final guys, and they'll have one guy, McClellan, who's probably going to be playing spoiler for some of the guys in the MX2 class.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm kind of bummed on my guy Marcus didn't get the team. He didn't get the call up, but yeah, I mean, I think South Africa's got a lot of guys that are good enough to definitely be in an A final for sure. I think that'll be probably their goal. I don't think they're going to contend for any top fives and like that. I think the teams this year are going to be pretty stacked. I think Spain will be pretty good. I think Australia will be really good. I think if Munir can kind of come into form, I think Australia is going to might be in the driver's seat to win the whole thing. And then Netherlands, Koldenhoff's kind of coming into form as well as Hurlings. And then, if De Wolf is healthy, they'll be tough to beat as well. So I think it's all about form for everybody, really. I think it's whoever's can get their guys to come and whoever is in the best form at the time, really. Whoever's feeling the best that day will kind of win it or be in contention.
I agree with your point that the Aussies and the Dutch are probably right up there with favorites. Koldenhoff just got his first moto win of the year and first
Yes.
moto win for Fantic. You never count out the Frenchies as well. I would guess that they would go Fevre, Vial, Renault as their lineup again, which of course won on French soil in 23. You can never count those guys out. And I'm sure
Yeah,
Team
and
USA will have a great lineup as well, considering it's a home race. I would guess since it's on home soil and his performance level last year, if he stays healthy, I feel like Eli Tomac could come back.
it'll be interesting. I think with like the destination stuff, it'll be a lot of guys are changing teams. Like I think we could see Chase in a new color next year, as has been rumored. We could see Tomac on a new color, as been rumored. Vial's going up to a 450, so it's like, what do those guys do? Do they decide to race this race? Do they decide to sit it out? It's kind of weird because like it's a home soil race. It's pretty easy to go do it. Like it's not like you're flying 8 hours across country to go do this race. It's like right in your backyard. So might as well, right? But these guys, all have kind of minds of their own, and I'll be interested when it comes down to like selection time, who decides to say yes and who decides to say no. I think if we can get a team of, if when Chase comes back, if he's in just as good a form as when he left, I think it'll be, if we can get him, Tomac, and Deegan, I think it'll be really, really tough to beat.
Even if we don't have one of those 450 guys, I feel like the way AP has been riding this summer, he could also be a huge asset to Team USA because, man, he's given Jet Lawrence and Eli Tomac fits in some of these motos. And on home soil, a track that he's done really well at the past at Ironman, he's podiumed there multiple times. I feel like he could be a very key pick for Team America if we need him as well. And one last piece of news before we transition into a sort of high point wrap up and Southwick preview. World Supercross is going to be back this winter. They have 5 races scheduled, going to go to places such as South Africa this year, going back to Canada, which should be cool. They've revealed a couple riders who are competing for the championship this year. You have Cody Schock and Enzo Lopes back in the MX2 class for the Arby's Rick Ware Racing team. That is a very, very spicy lineup. They had a lot of speed last year. Even though Shane McElrath was the class of the SX2 division, Enzo, after returning to Supercross full-time this year, getting signed late by Barracks Yamaha, he had a bunch of top 10 runs and showed some pretty good pace. And, of course, Cody Schock, a guy who scored his first career podium this year with his result at Arlington and a Triple Crown, no less. It's hard enough to podium, let alone to put 3 consistent moto scores together, and he got the job done. And he's been running pretty well 450 outdoors as well. Got a whole shot second moto at Thunder Valley, 2 top 10 moto finishes at High Point. And then the Bud Racing Kawasaki squad getting a lot of familiar veterans here in America together. They have Justin Hill in the 450 class. Justin raced for them a couple years ago. It'll be interesting to see him back on a Cowie after all of his success on a KTM this most recent year. Speaking of Arlington, he was fastest qualifier there. And then they're bringing Cole Thompson aboard in the SX2 class. And what I thought was the most interesting signing so far for World Supercross, a man who's been on a Honda for the past 5-6 years. Kyle Peters is a part of this Bud Racing Kawasaki team for World Supercross. 5-time Arena Cross champion. Unfortunately, he wasn't really able to defend his crown. He ran a couple races, but then pulled out of the Arena Cross Championship due to a neck injury, and Vince Freeze went on to win the title. But what are your thoughts on these World Supercross rider reveals? I think those are a lot of fast guys and people who could be hungry for podiums and potentially wins if we're talking about a guy like Justin Hill or Cody Schock.
Yeah, I mean, the World Supercross, I think it'll have a kind of a similar look as it did last year when it comes to like the SX2 class, especially. The 450 class will be a little bit different, I think. I think it'll be, I don't know if guys like Ken or Tomac are going to be doing all 5 races. I would expect to see them at some, maybe not all 5. But definitely like guys like KP and Cole Thompson. Like Cole was good last year. He rode for the Firepower team, and when Cole, I mean, when you see Cole's results on the American soil stuff, it's like, oh man, he's not bad, but he doesn't, jump off the page to you like a Cullen Park would or a Cody Schock would. But then he goes and races World Supercross and he's competing with those guys. I think the environment for a lot of these riders is everything. I think Cole, like when he's on the gate with guys like Schock and Cullen and Enzo Lopes, it's like I can compete with those guys. But when you're on the gate with Deegan, Beaumaire, Marchbanks, Kitchen, it's like maybe the mindset's a bit different. But I could see, it being definitely an interesting title race. I think there's going to be, 5 to 10 guys that are pretty solid, and like I'm sure we'll see like Maxime Desprez, and he's always kind of a wild card to have a good night. Like in Abu Dhabi last year, I think he won a race. So it's like it'll be interesting. I mean, I would assume that Cullen's doing it again, but I'm not 100% sure. But I believe it'll be with MCR guys, and then Pipes can always pull somebody crazy out for the 250 class as well. So I'm definitely interested to see like whenever the whole roster comes out to play. But it'll be interesting, man. It'll definitely be interesting. I think Shane will definitely not have it as easy as he did last year. I think these guys are getting more comfortable racing overseas, and it'll be fun. As long as the racing's good, I think the series will prosper. And I'm excited to see this series kind of keep growing and get better and better and better, because I think it provides a good opportunity for guys that maybe aren't full factory riders to kind of make a career out of, make some real money out of another championship like World Supercross.
Not only making the money, but getting to travel the world as well. I mean, they've had races in the UK, Australia. This year, like I mentioned, they're going to South Africa and some other places, which is really cool. I agree with you. I think if the racing is good, then World Supercross will continue to grow. I know some people on social media were kind of poking fun at it the first couple of years. It's like, it's 2 rounds. Is it really a championship? And all of that. But they're trying to work forward and grow. And when you had last year, you had Tomac and Roxon fighting for the championship, which was a huge deal for a small series like that, trying to really get off the ground and get going. And for me, personally, I like more racing. So in October, November, when I can't really see the pros race because they're off and they're training for the next season, we can watch World Supercross and still see really capable guys, fast guys. Justin Hill, 250 Supercross champion. Kyle Peters, 5-time Arena Cross champion. Guys who have put in a lot of success and a lot of results in America that, like you said, may not have been at that top level, but getting to compete over there. It's going to be fun to watch, and I'm also excited to see and interested to see who will be competing this year. Our last kind of segment of the podcast, as I mentioned right before we transition to the World Supercross aspect, kind of a high point recap and a Southwick preview. Once again, Jet Lawrence won the overall in the 450 class. Hayden Deegan won the overall in the 250 class. It's pretty common at this point to see, oh wow, Lawrence wins again, Deegan wins again. It's the status quo for the series, it seems like, at this point. One of the biggest talking points I feel like going into the weekend. What in the world is going on with Jorge Prado, man?
I don't know, man. My thoughts on Prada were kind of mixed. Like I think he kind of came over here with a little too much confidence and thinking it'd be easy to adapt. I think that his first 4 rounds of Supercross last year, they went well. Like it wasn't like he had any expectations, but I think he's kind of put expectations on himself, especially when it comes to outdoors, to be, this stud, and it just hasn't happened, and it's kind of weighing him down. I mean, I think the ability for him to be, compete for titles and compete for wins is there. Absolutely. The guy won 2 world championships, but is it going to take some time and some self reflection and some real humbleness to it? Like, I think so, yes, because I think he definitely is a little bit kind of shocked at himself and maybe like thinks he, not that he's better than he is, but that he's, didn't adapt as quickly as maybe he thought he would. So it definitely puts him in a tough spot because I think this weekend at Southwick, it's probably the most Euro style track or the most compatible with like a Euro type rider that we could see. But for him moving brands, I know the whole steel to aluminum frame is definitely a difference. So we'll see. I mean, I think that you give him another year, another full year of Supercross. We'll see how he is next year. I think he has the chance, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon this year. I don't think he might sniff a podium, but he ain't going to be on the box.
It started out the summer at least decent, not obviously at that front level, but he was running sixth place. He was getting laps down. And then it seems like the last couple races, the wheels have just come unglued. You talked about the steel frame to aluminum frame. That's definitely one thing I was going to mention. You have a guy who raced pretty much a decade in the MXGP series. He turned pro like 15 years old, and he was racing KTMs and then switching to gas, pretty much the same bike, but steel frame, and then coming over here, adapting to Supercross, adapting to the Kawasaki. But High Point was just a strange race. He was running about ninth or so, first moto. Nothing crazy for sure, but late in the moto, he just started to lose pace. They come out and say, well, arm pump was the issue. You watch Benoit Paturel, who's been running 10 to 15 range of the MXGP series. Nothing crazy, but he still puts in results. He still gets points on a consistent basis, but Benoit Paturel just straight up passes Jorge Prado. And I tweeted something about it at High Point. I'm like, who would have had that on their bingo card? The Benoit Paturel is straight up catching and passing Jorge Prado in a moto. And then we got the muddy conditions in the second moto. Obviously, there's talk out there that Prado doesn't like the mud. And from my perspective, watching out with all the fans and stuff and observing the race, it just felt like Jorge was not trying. He's 23rd in the second moto. He's getting beat by guys like Brad West and Scotty Verhage. And no offense to those guys, but a two-time world champion should not ever lose to those guys on paper unless he's DNFing or something. And just from my observations, I was standing by the downhill part of the finish line and then that right-hand sweeper that went up by the mechanics area, and I could hear the throttle rhythms from guys like Tomac, like Jet, AP, as they were coming down that hill. And it seemed like a lot of them, as they landed, they would take a second and then get back on the gas in the mud. For Prado, it felt like he was kind of halfway through the corner before he even hit the gas. It just looked like he wasn't even really trying from my perspective, second moto. It was a very strange race.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really able to watch much of the 450 races, but I definitely have been watching watching the broadcasts and stuff like that. But just with like the whole mud mentality, it's the mud thing. It's all mentality, in my opinion. It's if you're willing to embrace it and embrace that it sucks and everybody's got to do it, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna be fine. But if you don't, if you're scared and you're timid about it, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna suck. It's just kind of how I've seen everybody who's ever played in the mud or raced in the mud. It kind of goes like I can figure from experience with the whole Foxborough thing. Were embracing the mud and excited to have it and knew it would level the playing field, and sure enough it did for us. But for him, it obviously, if he's already saying he doesn't like it, doesn't seem like he's turning in the right direction when it comes to it. So I don't know, I think there's more in the tank for Prado. I just think it's going to be he's going to have to kind of reflect on himself a little bit and maybe calm down with what he's saying about himself or maybe his expectations and kind of build, I think, is kind of what he has to do. But I think that his expectation when he came in this year was, I'm going to win. And he's been sadly mistaken so far. So we'll see. I mean, I'm interested to see how he does for the rest of the year and how he finishes out and if he's able to kind of improve each weekend. But from what I've seen, he's kind of going in a downward spiral.
A couple of last observations from me about High Point. Speaking of Benoit Patrell, that dude was loose in qualifying. I don't know how many fans caught it, but there was the corner after the rollers where it's downhill and you have the split. You had the outside, and then you had kind of the mound where you roll over on the inside. A lot of guys were going down in that turn, so I'm not saying this was a Patrell thing. I watched Hayden Deegan go down there, and if the guy who's dominating every week in the 250 class goes down in that spot, you know it's a tricky area. But then next flying lap, he comes through, he enters the rollers, and that Suzuki was all over the place, and he backed out of it and rolled onto the grass. And I told one of my buddies who was talking about a fantasy lineup, and he's asking me, trying to get intel from the race firsthand. He's like, "Are these guys good?" I'm like, "Patrell's sketchy." That's all I'm going to say. I don't have anything for these other guys. But then he goes out and he's like 12-11, solid results. I thought that was interesting to see. And then if you want an example of how kind of stacked the 250 class is and how things can fluctuate, Mikkel Harup at High Point was the prime example of this. First moto, he goes down. He's at the back of the field. He was down first lap, started pretty much dead last. And it took him a long time to get up to the points because even outside of like the factory guys, like you mentioned earlier, you got Lux Turner, a guy from AEO Power Sports KTM who scored a bunch of points. Guys like Gavin Towers, Hunter Yoder, all of these guys that he tried to work through. He eventually got up to 19th. And then second moto, he starts top 10, almost throws it away, jumping into the mechanics area. And then immediately right behind him, Julian Beaumer goes down. I didn't see all of the crash. I saw the tail end of it. I definitely heard the crash. I don't know if you were able to catch that Juju crash. I'm watching everybody come down the hill trying to figure out where everybody is because it's the first lap, and all of a sudden I hear and I just see Juju flying off of his bike. But Harup, I mean, you get a top 10 start, and he gets 7th in the second moto. If that isn't evidence of how talented the 250 field is, when you get bad starts, you're not going to get great results. But when you're up there and up front, you're able to contend more. Did you have any observations? Obviously, I know you were focused on watching Jace race and seeing his debut, but were you able to catch anything else at High Point that maybe the TV broadcast didn't pick up, or something that really stuck out to you?
What stuck out to me a lot really is just like the biggest thing that I noticed, because I've really never been to a pro national before this past weekend, and it's just the TV does not do these downhills justice at all. Like it really is crazy. And what I noticed was the guys that were sending it the hardest down the hills and that were, kind of like the least scared of, not breaking the least, I guess you could say, were definitely the fastest. Like Marchbanks really impressed me with his ability to kind of charge down the hills and let the bike kind of flow, and his roll speed was really good. And that's who I looked at and was like, he's riding really, really well, especially second moto. Um, Moto 1, I would really say like Hammaker surprised me a little bit. Like Hammaker, not that he's been bad, but Hammaker definitely having a race like that or a moto like that where he was able to kind of come through past some of these guys and then finish on the podium in the moto was cool to watch. Like I was impressed by that. And I think Hammaker kind of dealing with the whole championship battle kind of at the end of Supercross, like was definitely a little checked out on prepping for outdoors, like in a serious way. Like it definitely takes a toll on you in a way I think that nobody can really see. So like when a guy like Hammaker, even like Tom, for example, like he's stressing this championship, making sure his, I's are dotted and his T's are crossed, when it comes to Supercross, outdoors kind of gets put on the back burner a little bit, and these guys don't get their prep as full for it. Like Deegan, like he had the thing locked up. It wasn't no question if he was going to win the title or not. So he was able to kind of focus on outdoors a little bit more. And same with like Levi and Chance and even Shimoda. So it kind of shows, in my opinion. So like now that we're getting into the nitty gritty of the season, these guys are going to start coming into form and being a little bit better, like Tom and Hammaker and even I guess Deegan still with the championship is already there, but I think we'll see those guys start getting better. So to see Seth get a third in Moto 1 was cool to see, and he definitely was riding really, really well.
Seth was impressive in Moto 1. Moto 2 was a little interesting. He kind of faded back a little bit, but he also missed Thunder Valley, so a little bit less time on the track and a little bit of maybe a gap in fitness compared to the other riders. Marchbanks, man, a couple years ago, and my last time at High Point as strictly a fan, 2023 when he was on the 450, and he was running right behind Jet for the first moto. He was looking very good, and the elevation, you might be onto something. He attacking the downhill sections, and definitely for people who have never been, if you go to a pro motocross race, it's definitely cool to see the elevation and to see the different size of the jumps. You see how big it is on TV and you kind of take it for granted. But until you're there, I know for me, when I got to do the track walk at Pittsburgh Supercross, to be able to actually walk up the face of the finish line jump, and for Supercross, the finish line jumps, those really don't change. They're mostly the same kind of size doubles every time. But to finally climb up one and get a feel for how steep that is, and all the top guys make those look so routine every week, it was really an eye-opener. And one last observation for High Point, I almost forgot. When Aaron Plessinger took the lead in that first moto after Jet stalled, I've been to High Point. This was my 7th time. First time, obviously, working with a media credential, media pass, and thank you to the MX Sports folks for that. But man, when AP took the lead, that is the loudest crowd reaction I've personally heard at that facility. And I've watched James Stewart there, Ryan Dungey, Ken Roxon, Jet Lawrence, Eli Tomac. Deegan and Tomac got a lot of cheers. Jet Lawrence got a lot of cheers. But when the Cowboy took the lead, the entire place, it seemed like, was standing up and yelling for the number 7.
It was cool. I want to say I think that's like his home race, technically, right? I mean, I
Pretty
think it's the
close. He is an Ohio boy,
close to where he's from.
closer to Kentucky where he's from, but still pretty close to
Yeah,
home track for him. And man, that crowd just erupted, and it's awesome to see kind of the
yeah, it was
fan
cool.
favorite. You've always had fan favorites in Supercross, but you really have like Jet Lawrence and Tomac, of course, have their fans, but it seems like AP is kind of the universal people's champion, so to speak. Always seems like he's very nice with fans and signing autographs and taking pictures, very personable, and of course, he's shotgun beers on the podium before and do it for Dale and all this other stuff, and the people just love the guy. As we wrap up, Southwick this weekend, I would say we'd have to take a lot of time previewing it, but coming out of the off week, we expect to see Hayden Deegan and Jet Lawrence out front again. I'll go to you first. In your opinion, who do you think is going to be contending for the podiums this weekend, and what are your predictions for Southwick?
Southwick's an interesting one, man. I really do think it's all about, like if you can get a good start, be in the top 5, and then kind of who can kind of hit the flow state the earliest, really. And I think I got the opportunity to watch Tom today train on the sand track, and man, he goes pretty fast, and he's definitely one of those guys that I watch ride in the sand, and it's like, yeah, he's gonna be good. He's gonna be really good. So I think it'll be Deegan will be on the podium somewhere. Who's probably gonna win the race, especially if he gets out front early. I think if he can keep it clean, Deegan will probably win. And then I think Tom's gonna come in second, and then I could see a guy like Levi. Levi, kind of the way he rides, kind of off the back of the bike a little bit. Kind of suits that sand style a little bit. That or even a Shimoda, even. I think Shimoda or somebody like Hammaker could be good too. It's kind of like that third place is like very up in the air for me. I think you can kind of lock. I think I can lock in Deegan and Vial being on the podium, but that last spot just it's anybody's really. There's like 7 guys you can name that could definitely get it done. So I'll be interested to see. I think the Southwick too is like there's supposed to be some rain in the forecast. It could be a game of bike survival too. Just trying to keep your bike cooled off and not overheating and stuff like that. So it could be interesting to see what happens. But I definitely think that Vial and Deegan will be on the podium, and then I couldn't tell you who will get third. It could be Kitchen, it could be Marchbanks, it could be Masterpool, it could be Hammaker, it could be Drew Adams, it could be Shimoda. I'm unsure. It'll be tough. It could be Beaumare. I don't know. It could be anybody. There's so many guys that are so good right now, and it's tough to put a guy on that spot.
For me, I do feel like Deegan and Vial probably the two favorites going into it. Shimoda, his second moto win last year, I feel like that kind of flew under the radar. Kitchen, I think, will be up there as well. It will be interesting to see, to witness. I know in terms of the DVD guys, if Crockett Myers is back this weekend, you talk about a guy who could be a sleeper in the sand. Crockett's won Arena Cross main events in some pretty deep sand in Daytona before. He performed really well at Southwick a year ago. So don't sleep on the Crockett rocket in the sand.
Yeah, unfortunately he's not racing, but I mean,
I know he had the illness at High Point, but I thought he was back for Southwick and returning.
No, there was talk about it, but he's got something going on, I believe, the weekend before to make sure he kind of gets things smoothed over, and then I think we should expect him back at Redbud.
And
but
then,
don't quote me on that. I'm not 100%.
Sounds good. Hopefully we see the 142 back in action soon. And then 450 class, I mean, Jet Lawrence, Eli Tomac obviously going in as the favorites. I think Hunter Lawrence performed very well at Southwick last year as well. He's got a couple runner-up finishes. He went 2-2 at High Point, was right there behind Jet, was right there behind Tomac most of the second moto in the mud. Don't count out the 96 as well. I don't, like you mentioned earlier, I don't know if the Coonans are coming over. That could just be a crazy rumor. Who knows for sure? But for sure, I think Jet Lawrence, Hunter Lawrence, Eli Tomac will be up front. And who knows, maybe there'll be a Prado sighting. I don't know. But any last thoughts before we close here for episode 1 of the Stire Sound?
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know how. I think we could see Prado sniff the podium this weekend if he gets a good start. I think the stand. But if the Coonans are there, man, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Lucas Coonan on the old box. I really wouldn't be surprised. But I think it's going to be tough to beat Jet or Eli right now, I think. But Hunter definitely could sneak in there. AP definitely could sneak in there. But it's definitely going to be the Jet and Tomac show this weekend.
Hopefully we get to see him battle it out like they did at Fox Raceway, like they did earlier in Supercross at San Diego. But that does it for episode 1, the official episode 1 of the Stire Sound podcast. Jack Noel, thank you so much for joining me. I know you'll be at Southwick this weekend with the Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM crew. Enjoy your weekend at Southwick. Safe travels. Best of luck to your organization and those guys as they try to qualify and mix it up.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun. I'm excited to do more of these.
Yeah, we talked a little bit at High Point at Press Day. You were talking like, hey, man, I'm trying to get a podcast going. And I was like, well, I'm already trying to get it set up and get the RSS feed going. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio. I might look into going to a couple other platforms as well just to spread the word and get the name out there more. But Jack said he wanted to do this, and I was wanting to do this at the same time. So naturally, we came together, and you're probably going to be hearing a lot more of Mr. Jack Noel on the Stire Sound. Thank you for joining me once again. Thank you, everybody, for listening and tuning in. Be sure to spread the word to your friends, to your families, to your coworkers. We're just trying to talk about some motocross and have a good time. Be a little loose with it and informal. We're going to have some interviews on here in the future, hopefully. Of course, as I mentioned in the first introduction episode, I might have a little bit of MXGP crossover episode with Edward Heather from Dirt Hub UK. He's already talked to me about potentially doing a kind of across the pond episode where we talk a little bit about each championship. But thank you all so much for listening. It's Southwick weekend, ladies and gentlemen, whether you're going to the track, whether you're watching at home on Peacock, or you're going to some local race, enjoy your weekends. Stay safe out there. This has been Trey Stire for the Stire Sound, fading out.
Life's a beach. I'm just playing in the sand.
Life's a beach. Just playing in the sand, right?
Life's a beach. I'm just playing in the sand of Southwick, baby.